Hey ladies, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here today. On our episode, we are going to talk about more mindful, sustainable way to eating that doesn't have and doesn't leave you with rigid rules or calorie counting that can really start to guide you towards your meals, how you can build healthier habits, reduce overeating, and work towards your weight loss goals where it doesn't feel like it's as taxing as calorie counting. Today, we're going to talk about the Hunger-Fullness scale. It's a follow-up from last week when we talked about different ways that you can approach eating that doesn't have to be calorie counting, and a way that you're not so nuanced on every single thing that you're eating, but you're starting to pay a little bit more attention to how you feel. So today's episode, we are going to talk about the Hunger-Fullness scale. We're going to talk about why it works. We're going to talk about sometimes where it's hard for people. We're going to talk about what it is and some strategies to help you along the way if you find you're struggling when it comes to the Hunger-Fullness scale. Welcome to the Whole Health Empowerment Project podcast. This show is for women over 40 who are trying to create balance in their life when it comes to food, body, self-care, and wellness. You struggle to put yourself first, to maintain consistency when something isn't perfect, or maybe you feel like you don't have enough time or willpower to achieve the goals you desire. I'm your host, Trisha Stefankowitz, registered dietitian, nutritionist. I've worked with women like you achieve their goals by focusing on the next best step, no matter how messy, and meeting you where you are right now. In this show, you'll learn practical information, actionable strategies, and mindset tweaks so that you can feel healthier, more comfortable in your body, and make choices that work for your life. Come join me in failing forward, one imperfect step at a time, into the journey of health, wellness, and self-care. Welcome to your new project. First, let's talk about what is the Hunger-Fullness scale. In the podcast links, I will leave a copy of a Hunger-Fullness scale that I made for you guys. You can find it there. But the Hunger-Fullness scale is a simple 1 to 10 rating system that helps you gauge how hungry or full you are before eating meals, during meals, and after meals. Think of it as it can be an intuitive eating or a mindful eating approach that you're starting to think about more of what you're eating and how you feel versus how many calories you're having at this meal. You're really starting to focus on where you are right now with your hunger level, how satisfied you are while you're eating. And instead of finishing everything on your plate, you're checking in with yourself to see if you're full. If we were to talk about what this scale looks like if you don't have it in front of you, is essentially you have a 1 to 10 rating system. 1 to 2, you are ravenously hungry, you're starving. You may start to feel like you're having actual physical symptoms of being physically hungry, such as, that hangry feeling, or you may feel a little bit lightheaded, like you need to eat. 3 to 4 means that you're moderately hungry, your stomach is starting to feel empty, and you're starting to get ready for food. So this is the place where you want to start eating. You don't want to wait till 1 or 2 because then you're too hungry, but 3 or 4. So you're keeping an eye on how it is you're feeling, and at this stage, 3 or 4, you're moderately hungry. 5 or 6, you're pretty comfortable. You're no longer feeling hungry, but you're not yet full. 7, 8 is you're satisfied to comfortably full. You may feel content, but not overly stuffed. And then 9 to 10, you are so full that you feel uncomfortable. You are possibly bloated or you feel lethargic. In general, you're aiming to eat when you're at a 3 to 4 on the hunger scale. So you're moderately hungry, and then stopping at around 7 when you're comfortably full. This will help keep in touch with your body's signals and prevent overeating. So that is what the Hunger-Fullness scale looks like. Some of the benefits to using a hunger scale for weight loss is that it can help you reduce your overeating. By tuning into your body's natural hunger cues, you can start to avoid the common pitfalls of eating more than you actually need. For most people, when you put food in front of them, that plate becomes the entire portion size. So it's hard for people when you put a full plate to stop halfway through, unless they're doing it at the beginning, to say, hey, I don't want to eat everything that's on my plate. So if you're using a Hunger-Fullness scale, this approach will let you eat the right amount for what you're feeling right now, but you're still able to eat the foods that you love. You don't feel like you're being overly restrictive. And also, if you're not as hungry as what is in front of you, you don't have to eat your whole plate, which is probably what you were taught or how you grew up eating. It encourages a positive relationship with food because it emphasizes satisfaction over restriction. Instead of rigidly limiting certain foods or obsessing about how many calories you have left in the day, you're starting to listen and learn about what your body needs. And by doing so, it fosters a more supportive and positive relationship that you're having when it comes to food. And I think the biggest thing with the Hunger-Fullness scale is that it's a long-term fix. You don't have to bring it along with you. You don't have to pull out a phone to log your food. It's something that can be really difficult at first because you're having to learn to listen to your body's cues. And most women are so disconnected from their body and their hunger and fullness cues that it does take a little bit of time. But ultimately, if you can get it down and practice it, it really will help you be in the moment and focus more on the actual enjoyment of the food and being out socially, because you're able to have that relationship where you know that you're full and, okay, I'm going to stop eating now. In doing so, it also supports mindful eating habits. We know that mindful eating has been shown to help people manage their weight, and the Hunger-Fullness scale is a tool that facilitates that. Because you tend to eat more slowly, you're savoring your food. The biggest thing is that you're checking in with yourself and you're checking in to see, okay, how hungry am I right now? How satisfied am I? Do I need to stop? And asking yourself those questions can make a big difference when it comes to your weight loss journey. And it doesn't mean that you can't utilize other forms of knowing what you're eating, but I think this is a really good tool that if you find yourself on a weight loss journey, that you can use this along with whatever else you're using, especially if you feel like you're so disconnected. This is an easier way that you can start to think about where you are in terms of your Hunger-Fullness and starting to sort out if you're physically hungry or if there's more an emotional eating component. And also you can use the other tools that you're using too, but you can use this in addition to feel more of that connection with yourself. And then hopefully over time, you can stop using the other things that you're using to figure out what it is you're eating every day. And then just really rely on this tool because it's more about what you're feeling in the moment. We know that using a Hunger-Fullness scale can really make the eating experience much more enjoyable. It can be much more guilt-free. It takes away that diet mentality of restriction, guilt, shame. It takes away the food rules. By focusing on your internal cues rather than the external cues that are all around you, you can enjoy your meals without feeling deprived or restricted, which can make it much easier for you to do in the long term. Some of the challenges when you first start using the Hunger-Fullness scale is that for many people, we rely on external cues to let us know when we need to stop eating. Those external cues can be things like what your plate looks like and the specific portion sizes on there. And so that external cue is saying to you, okay, this is my portion. I'm going to stop eating when there's nothing left on my plate. We know that external cues can also be calorie counting. Okay, I've eaten 500 calories for this meal. I am done. And so it's very hard sometimes for people to switch from those external cues, which you've been doing your entire life. I know as a woman, I have been doing that my entire life, to then focus on what is happening within your body. And for a lot of women, you may be so disconnected that you don't even know what your hunger and fullness cues are. Many people, myself included, especially when you start using this scale, you may feel like you have lost touch with your natural hunger and fullness cues because of many years of dieting, following restrictive eating plans, eating within a fasting window, eating on a schedule, that those little subtle cues of being physically and truly hungry may not exist. You may have been so accustomed to eating on your external cues that it's really hard for you to even know when it is that you're hungry. And so emotional eating can be another reason why it can be really hard at the beginning using a hunger-fullness scale. You may use food to manage your stress or to manage boredom or to get comfort. And all of those things start to interfere with your hunger and fullness cues. When we eat times, or we've had times that we overeat, it's very easy to bypass those natural signals for being full. And so if emotional eating is something that is a factor for you, it will force you, when you're looking at a hunger and fullness scale, to really start to figure out, are you physically hungry or is it an emotional hunger? And if it ends up being something that is emotionally why you're eating, it's good to know that. But also you can start to figure out if there's other strategies besides food that is readily available to you that you may have always been using to find comfort. And there may be other things that you can do instead, like call a friend, going for a walk, journaling. You can start to become aware of the emotional triggers and give yourself more compassion so that you can gradually work on building other healthy habits, including your hunger and fullness cues. One of the other ways that people struggle with the hunger fullness scale at the beginning is that you may feel that you may be distracted a lot while you're eating. You may be somebody who likes to eat while you're multitasking. You may be watching TV or scrolling on your phone or working. And all of those things become external cues. And so you're just eating what is in front of you, but you're not mindful of your eating environment. And so it can start to interfere with the internal cues that your body is giving you, that is telling you when you're hungry or when you're full. We know that when you're distracted, people tend to eat much more quickly, maybe even much more than they would normally eat, and then also maybe get to a place where you're uncomfortably full. So one of the solutions here would be to try to eat without distractions so that you can start to assess whether your body is hungry or full. And especially if you're new to this whole idea of being mindful when it comes to eating. Another thing that can interfere with trying to figure out if you're hungry or full is that sometimes you have some physical factors that disrupt hunger cues. You may be having some hormonal changes or stress or lack of sleep. And these different things can trigger or make you feel hungry, but you don't really know if it's a true hunger or a physical hunger. And so just paying attention to that and knowing, which we're going to talk about a little bit more, if you're actually hungry or if you're not, then you can start to figure out, do you need to do something else? Are you eating because you didn't sleep enough last night? Okay, the solution is not to eat, but it's to sleep more. Are you eating because you're getting your period or you're menopausal? trying to figure out if there's some hormonal stuff going on there. Are you eating because you're stressed? And this is a really quick way to unburden yourself with some of that stress. Well, then we know that you have to figure out a way to manage your stress. So it'll kind of guide you to start to understand what it is about why you're eating, and also start to think about some ideas that you can do instead of eating. But I think having that light bulb moment of being like, oh, I'm eating because I'm stressed, or, oh, I'm eating because I didn't sleep all that night last night. I think that can be really helpful for people because it just gives you some insight that maybe if you hadn't slowed down and you hadn't tuned into your hunger and fullness cues, you may not have gotten there, and it can make a big impact on your life. Now that we've talked about what the hunger and fullness scale is, why it can be really beneficial to you, where people struggle, let's talk about how to use the Hunger-Fullness scale when it comes to weight loss and building healthy eating habits. Using the Hunger-Fullness scale is about paying attention to where you are on the scale before you eat, during your meals, and after. Remember, the Hunger-Fullness scale is a 1 to 10 rating system where if you are at 1 to 2, you are starving. If you're at 3 to 4, you're moderately hungry. This is where you want to start eating, where your stomach starts to feel empty and you're ready for food. You're going to stop eating when you get to a 7 or an 8 because this is where you start to feel comfortably full, but you're not feeling overly full. The first thing here is to check in with yourself before you eat. Before you reach for any food, pause and assess where you are on the hunger scale. Are you generally hungry, or are you reaching for food out of habit? Are you genuinely hungry, or are you bored or stressed and you're reaching for food for comfort? Aim to start eating when you're at a 3 or 4, when you're feeling the need for food, but you're not completely ravenous. Waiting until you're really hungry, which would be 1 or 2 on the scale, often leads to overeating because it's harder to pace yourself or to get that feeling of fullness when you are super hungry like that, where you feel like you're famished. If you find yourself between meals but at a 5 or above on the scale, consider doing something else to distract yourself. Say you have this window where you are between breakfast and lunch, where you feel like maybe you could eat, but if you were to look at the hunger scale, you're at a 5. You're just, nah. This would be a time that maybe you're eating because it's habit. So try to find something else that you could do here to see if it satiates that or if it kind of takes that feeling away. I would drink a glass of water, distract yourself by maybe going for a walk or doing something that is going to take your mind off of eating, because this might be a place in the day where you have habitually eaten, but maybe you weren't really hungry. And so now it's this trying to find if there's something else that you can do to take your mind off of eating and to see if you don't eat, that it satisfies something and that you feel like you didn't really need to eat anyway. So trying to find something else to do as opposed to eating. The second tip here is to eat slowly, especially at the beginning, and pay attention to what it is you're eating. Eating slowly gives your body time to send a fullness signal to your brain. It takes about 20 minutes for these signals to register. So if you eat too quickly, you may eat more than you actually need. Have you ever noticed when you've gone to a restaurant, say, and you're with your friends and you're in the middle of eating and you could probably eat the rest of whatever it is on your plate, but then maybe you start talking or somebody else starts talking and you put your fork down. And then all of a sudden, maybe it's been about 10 minutes, but you're not hungry anymore. Well, that's because your body was able to have a little bit of time to tell your brain, hey, I'm full now. And so many of us eat so quickly, or like we're on a mission and that we have to kind of eat whatever's on our plate, that we never quite get there, that we give ourselves or allow ourselves that downtime so that we never get to a place that we actually feel full and we keep eating. So if you're able to be mindful, you're able to savor each bite. If you're able to put your utensils down between bites, you give yourself time to feel satisfied. A tip here also would be to check in with yourself halfway through the meal, especially if you're not socializing and you're by yourself when you're eating. It's helpful to start to think, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit full, or I'm still really hungry. And what that does is, especially if you're eating slower, it's going to allow you to assess your fullness level. It's going to allow you to be more mindful that you're able to enjoy the taste of food, see how it smells, and ask yourself if you're eating because you're truly hungry or if you're eating out of habit. The third tip here would be to stop at satisfied. So you will stop when you're around a 7 on the scale. Many of us, myself included, grew up that you had to eat the entire plate. We were told, there are starving children in Africa, so you need to eat everything. And that's a really tough habit to break. And it can make it really difficult for you to leave food on your plate because of all that stuff that you heard when you were growing up, and because you've probably been eating a certain way for a long period of time. But if you use the Hunger-Fullness scale, it'll help you practice stopping when you're at a 7 so that you feel comfortably full and satisfied. At this level, you should feel content and energized. You shouldn't feel overly stuffed like on Thanksgiving. You shouldn't feel overly fatigued because you've eaten too much. And remind yourself that if you feel like you're stopping eating, especially at the beginning because you may or may not be hungry, you're not going to starve. You can eat something more later if you're hungry. So this is just practicing. You're practicing so that you can start to listen to what your body feels. With the Hunger-Fullness scale, it's one of those things that it just takes practice and time, because again, you may be so disconnected from your body, you may not even know when you're eating, why you're eating, when it is you feel full. So it's not something that you're going to get right away. It's going to be something that you're going to practice. And then over time, you're going to be like, oh, if I wait a couple minutes here, if I drink some water here, and then you're going to start to figure out how this works for you. So don't get crazy feeling like you're not doing it right. If it's hard, you're doing it right. And it will take practice. And then lastly here would be to use the scale to identify any emotional eating patterns that you have. Sometimes, a lot of times, if you're an emotional eater, you may eat to satisfy or comfort yourself with whatever emotion that you're feeling, not because you're physically hungry. If you're using the Hunger-Fullness scale, can help you recognize these patterns. If you notice that you're eating at about a 5 or above when you're not truly hungry, ask yourself, am I eating because I'm stressed? Am I eating because there's another emotion going on? Is there an emotional trigger that I'm trying to comfort myself with? And then I think it's starting to try to figure out if you can do a non-food coping strategy that can help you when you feel like these emotions start to strike you. Do you need to take a little time for yourself? Do you need to do a little bit of deep breathing? Do you need to journal? Oftentimes when we're worried or thinking about weight management and how we're going to lose weight, emotional eating can be really common during this time. And so if you're able to start to identify some of the emotions that you've been probably trying to avoid, then you can start figuring out some strategies to help you manage that piece of it. And then hopefully eating will be more fun for you because you're not using it as a form of coping. You're using it as a way to fuel your body and give your body what it needs to stay healthy as you age. How do you know if it's real hunger? And this is what I think can be really confusing, that there is a distinction between true physical hunger and emotional hunger. And as you start to use this scale, that may be something that comes up for you. Typically, if you are physically hungry, you are going to have hunger that develops gradually over time, that you may start to feel that your stomach is growling. And typically, if you are truly hungry, you eat and then you feel full, where emotional hunger can be a little bit more challenging because it can come on suddenly. It can come on triggered by feelings or an event that you may have just recently been through. But usually you feel the need that you have to eat right away. And then as you're eating, you don't really ever get to a place that you feel physically full. When it comes to the type of food cravings, if you're physically hungry, you're generally open to eating things that are balanced, like protein, fibers, and healthy fats, because you're trying to satisfy that feeling of hunger. Typically, with emotional hunger, you're going to have cravings for specific comfort foods, and that is going to be whatever is comforting to you, whether it's sugar or salt or fat, whatever it is that you like. What's going to happen is that your body is wanting this quick dopamine hit. And so it will temporarily ease your feelings of what you're going through, but then it will come back and you'll continue to crave some of these foods. You may have some emotional triggers. So if you're physically hungry, your body is driven by your body's need for energy. You feel like you're having physical symptoms, like your stomach is growling. You may have low energy. You may feel lightheadedness. But if you're emotionally hungry, you're triggered by feelings, not a physical need to eat. And that's the biggest distinction here. The feelings tend to be work stress or trying to cope versus physical hunger. And satisfaction can be something with physical hunger. You are usually satisfied after you eat a balanced meal. You feel content, you feel engaged. With physical hunger, you usually start to feel satisfied after eating a balanced meal. You feel content, you feel comfortably full, you feel like your body is getting what it needs. When you are emotionally hungry, you are eating but never quite getting satisfied or full. You may eat as you feel the feeling, and then once the feeling comes back, you continue to eat. So a lot of times you get stuck in this cycle of you're eating, you get that dopamine hit, it feels really good. You're going to continue to eat, you're going to get that dopamine hit, it feels good. And so you're eating almost in this cycle until you get to a place that you're overly full, and you still afterwards have these feelings, which may be guilt or shame or regret, because the food didn't actually address the underlying issue. That emotion that you're feeling still might be there, compounded by the other emotions that you feel because you've eaten more than you probably felt like you needed. Where if you're physically hungry, you're going to feel good, you're going to feel energized, and you're not going to have that guilt or shame because you met a legitimate need that your body was asking you to meet. So as a reminder here, today we've talked about the Hunger-Fullness scale. We have talked about the benefits of using it in the sense that it will help you become more aware of your internal cues, of how you feel when you're hungry, how you feel when you're full. It allows you to take away the external cues, such as calorie counting, putting a meal in front of you where you're eating, but you don't really know what a portion size is. It will allow you to have a more balanced relationship and with food, and it allows you to, over time, hopefully not have to rely on other things to keep your calories in check, but it will allow you to start to develop a healthier relationship with food without feeling overly restricted in what it is that you can eat. We talked about how at the beginning it can feel really hard because you may feel so disconnected from your body, and you'll have that time where you're going to have to be patient with yourself so that you can start to accurately start to gauge your hunger and fullness, especially if in the past you've used eating and you've been on autopilot. We've talked about starting small, that maybe at the beginning you just aim for one meal at a time and you start to focus on that one meal. Maybe this is the meal that is the hardest for you during the day. So if you're somebody who likes to eat at the end of the night, maybe you focus on dinner so that you can start to figure out if you are eating well into the night, where you actually are hungry, and are you truly hungry, or is there an emotion here that is getting in the way? We know that hunger and fullness and listening to your body's needs, it'll allow you to see that maybe there's some days when you're more hungry than others, and there's some days when you're more full sooner, but that this is really a guide for you. It doesn't have to be something that's rigid. It's more something that is according to what your body needs at this particular time, and that it's always changing. The Hunger-Fullness scale can be a really powerful tool to encourage mindful eating, to encourage you to come back to thinking about the internal cues that your body is telling you. It can create awareness. It can create a beneficial relationship with food. And more importantly, it can start to create trust with your body, which over time, from dieting and eating certain ways and calorie counting and being restrictive, all of that trust in our body starts to go away. If you're able to use this scale as a guide to some of the foods that you're eating, you can start to enjoy eating. You may lose weight without the stress of tracking every single bite. And over time, you'll find that you're more in tune with your hunger and fullness cues. And that will make it easier for you as you go through life and navigate the changes that your body is going to undergo with menopause or perimenopause, because you're going to start to feel like it's more natural and it's going to feel more enjoyable to eat. If you're able to embrace the hunger and fullness scale as a supportive guide, and remember that the journey to a healthier you is about building healthier long-term habits overall, and that it's not about perfection, then this is a way that you can start to do that. This is a way that you can thank your body and start to pay more attention to your body and to start to trust your body and form a relationship with your body and food that maybe you've never really worked on. And so I would encourage you today to print out the Hunger-Fullness scale. Again, it's in the show notes. You can find a million Hunger-Fullness scales on social media or on Google. And I would encourage you just to pick a meal today. And again, make it a meal that might be a hard meal for you, and start to figure out, okay, am I eating because I'm hungry? Am I eating because I have an emotion? And even if you feel like that's what you discover from using a Hunger-Fullness scale, that there is something that you're doing in terms of comforting yourself and that's why you're eating, well, that's wonderful, because that's information that maybe you kind of knew but you didn't quite know. But now you're able to pinpoint, okay, I'm eating because of this reason and I'm eating at this particular time. And so remembering that it will take some time to really start to figure out what your cues are. It will take some time, and you may explore some things that you don't particularly love, like you're eating out of comfort, but it's all part of the process. So don't judge yourself because of it, because it's just giving you information. There's no judgment with this. It providing you information so that you feel like you have all the information that you need about yourself, and that you continue to learn about yourself. And as you go through other life stages, you're going to continue to learn. And so just be open to the idea that you're going to find some stuff out about yourself, and if you're an emotional eater, but that just be patient with yourself, because it's not meant to shame you or harm you. It's meant to, this Hunger-Fullness scale, to give you more information so that you can make the best choices now and get you to a place that you're able to build long-term habits that are sustainable, that you don't find yourself back in this cycle of like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to lose weight again. So be patient to yourself, be kind to yourself. You are amazing. And just think of it in a way that you're doing something that's really positive for your life, positive for your body, positive for your relationship with food. I thank you guys again so much for listening, and I will see you guys back here next week. Thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you found value in this podcast, please rate, review, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Don't forget to share this episode with your friends. Together, we can take tiny, imperfect steps towards creating the whole health we desire and deserve. Don't forget to grab your freebie. You can find the link in your show notes or over at triciard.com. I'll see you back here next week.